Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the Music Hole. My name is Cole, and today we're doing another entry in my best albums of all time series. You know, these are albums that blew me away that I just really want to share with you guys. So I'm excited to talk about it. And today we're going back 16 years ago to 2005 with a band called Editors. This is their debut album, The Back Room. And this was back in the heyday of the new wave post-punk revival going on with, like, you know, The Strokes and Interpol and bands like that. But I always thought that this album in particular got kind of overlooked. As far as I'm concerned, it's a really consistent album. It has an amazing sound. Like, it's just ear candy, you know, just non-stop ear candy, basically, as far as I'm concerned. But the lyrics are good. The singing is great. I just really like it. So, you know, as always, I've got a bunch of clips lined up that I'm excited to talk about. So let's start with track 1, Lights.
I still love the light, oh baby. Keeps me awake, but I don't mind. Everything I always wanted is right there, but soon it won't be. If fortune favors the brave, I am as poor as they come. I got a million things to say, I got a million things to.
Yeah, so that's Lights. And I like this beginning. It's got a good energy to it. You know, the guitar work at the end of the clip is really good, I think. And again, Tom Smith singing, I think he does a great job on this album. But this album is basically about a guy who's really passive. He's probably really depressed. He's just not very proactive. And as he says in this clip, if fortune favors the brave, he is as poor as they come. And then he says, you know, I've got a million things to say. So it sounds like this guy, you know, there's all these issues in his life that he could just deal with if he was proactive, if he was courageous, if he just stood up for himself, you know. But he's troubled. He's got some mental problems, you know, whatever they are. And they're just preventing him from having the life he wants. And, you know, the song even starts, basically, he says that when he goes to bed with his girlfriend, he wants the lights on. Like, that's just how afraid, you know, I'm imagining he's in a dark room with, you know, he's turned the lights off, it's bedtime, and he's just, like, so even scared of the dark. Like, he's just so messed up. I could be interpreting that a little too literally, but it made me think of that. So yeah, here's this poor guy, and geez, I hope he figures out his life. So let's continue his story in track number 2.
It breaks when you don't force it. It breaks when you don't try. It breaks if you don't force it. It breaks if you don't try. People are fragile things you should know by now. Be careful what you put them through. People are fragile things you should know by now. You'll speak when you're spoken to.
So that's Munich, and I just love the guitar sound in this song. Like, it's just such a great song, sonically speaking. But lyrically, it's another excellent example of the point of this album. Because again, we've got this guy who's very passive and depressed and sad. And he's in this relationship, And as he says, you know, it breaks if he doesn't force it. It breaks if he doesn't try. So there's issues in the relationship that he's just like too afraid to bring up and to confront, and he's too afraid to tackle these issues plaguing his relationship. And I love the last line on this clip in particular because it pertains to that. You know, he says, you'll speak when you're spoken to. So basically this guy, I interpret that as this guy will not deal with any of the problems in his life or in his relationship unless the girl brings it up. And so like if she finally brings it up, then okay, then we'll deal with it, because now it's like he's on the spot, so to speak. And I can definitely relate to that. I've definitely been in that position before. So just a great song all around. I really like it. I believe it was a single, I'm not sure. But anyway, that's all I have to say about it. So let's move on to track number 3 called Blood.
Don't say it's easy to follow a process. There's nothing harder than keeping a promise. Blood runs through your veins. That's where our similarity ends. Blood runs through our veins.
So that's Blood, which I think is a really interesting song, lyrically speaking. It spoke to me because, again, here's this guy who he's got his issues, and it sounds like he's made promises to his girlfriend that, like, okay, I promise I'll stop doing this or I'll start doing that, you know, to improve the relationship, to improve his life. But, you know, I'm sure many of you can relate. I can relate in the sense that, like, you know, mental problems come up, and even though you promised that you're going to do something, you know, maybe you got really depressed or really anxious or something happened and you just weren't able to do it. And, you know, as he says, the same blood runs through our veins, because the girl is having trouble understanding what the heck is wrong with this guy. You know, as far as she's concerned, like, the same blood runs through our veins in the sense that, you know, she's not willing to consider that this guy is just really struggling mentally, that even though she might be fine and she can keep a promise, that this guy is just a total mess, and, you know, he might screw up, and he probably will screw up. And if he does screw up, she needs to be somewhat willing to forgive him, so to speak. So another really cool song. I really liked it. But that's all I have to say about it. As far as track 4 goes, it's called Fall. It's a good song, but it didn't really jump out at me. I don't really want to talk about it per se. So let's move on to track number 5 called All Sparks. So that's All Sparks. And our poor hero, I mean, this guy is just struggling so hard. You know, it sounds like he's getting a little bit paranoid, right? He's in this relationship and he's getting paranoid in the sense that, like, he just assumes this girl is going to eventually realize this guy is just not a winner and she'll leave him. So when he says that he starts answering questions that haven't been asked, he's trying to, like, defend his, he's trying to defend the fact that he's good enough for this person. Or maybe even you could go so far as to say, like, maybe he thinks that she thinks that he's cheating on her or something like that. So he's like, he's just in defense mode, because as far as he's concerned, this girl is too good for him. There's no way that she'll stay. You know, all sparks will burn out in the end. So he just has no like positive thinking going on. You know, very unfortunate. So it's a pretty interesting song in that regard. You know, our poor character just is not learning anything. His life is not improving. But that's all I have to say about All Sparks. It's another cool song. So let's move on to the next song, which is called Camera.
Look at us through the lens of a camera. Does it remove all of our pain? If we run, they'll look in the back room where we hide all of our feelings.
I just really like these lyrics. You know, they spoke to me. You know, it's true, because he's imagining a photograph of the two of them together, and on the surface level, it probably looks like, you know, they're both smiling maybe for the camera, and so they appear happy, they appear fine, but deep down, at least in his shoes, he's really struggling, you know. And so it's a little bit of social commentary as well in that regard, of people just are more willing to put up a front and not expose their inner weakness, their inner sadness to others, you know. And I think that's fair to say. I think that like exposing your feelings, your true feelings to other people is generally not an accepted thing to do in society, you know, unless you know them really well, unless they're your therapist. You know, so it got me thinking about that. You know, just the fact that like most people, understandably, are just going to keep these things bottled up inside, and they're not going to talk about them. And you know, other people look at the photo, you know, metaphorically speaking, of this person who, like, he appears fine, he appears in order, but he's really not. So I like this song quite a bit. It's a really cool song. But that's all I have to say about it. So the next track, number 7, is absolutely my favorite song on the album. It's called Fingers in the Factories. And it's my favorite mostly because, just sonically speaking, it just gives me goosebumps every time I listen to it. It's just so, it just sounds so good. But anyway, so I clipped it. So let's check it out.
Pull a sentence from your lips to keep them quiet. What they want to hear. Oh, you're the night, the dirty night that keeps us going. No one left to fear. As the sun goes down on a broken town and the fingers bleed in the factories, come on out tonight, come and see the sight of the ones you love and the ones in love. And you keep with me, keep with me, keep with me, keep with me.
Yeah, so I clipped this for 2 reasons. I mean, one is just sonically, it's just such an epic song. I absolutely love it. But also, again, you know, it's more lyrics about this guy and his struggles. And, you know, he says that he has to pull a sentence from his lips to keep them quiet, you know, which is basically, as I mentioned earlier, this guy doesn't want to confront his problems. He doesn't want to get better, maybe, in the sense that, like, he probably doesn't even know how to get better. But he would much rather keep up appearances, seem fine. You know, maybe he seems off and someone notices, and that person is like, "Oh, you seem off. Like, are you okay?" And you know, as he says, he pulls a sentence from his lips to kind of like, how would you put it? You know, this situation is escalating, but he dampens it with, you know, like, oh no, I'm fine, or like, oh yeah, this happened today, so that's why I seem off. Like, he just makes something up. He doesn't want to get into it. You know, again, very relatable. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about this song. It's just a really, really sonically good song, and I like the lyrics. But that's all I have to say about it. So with that said, let's move on to the next song.
If something has to change, then it always does. If something has to change, then it always does. You don't need this disease, not right now. No, you don't need this disease, not right now. Oh, you don't need this disease, 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 you don't need this disease. It's something.
So that's Bullets, which I believe is the second single, and you can definitely hear it with the sound of the song. It just has that vibe. Another great sound. But again, I like these lyrics because it sounds like our character, our hero, has the ability to change, but only when like just completely confronted with the fact that like if he doesn't change, his life is going to be completely messed up somehow. So like on some level, he has that ability to change, but he's just unable to tap into that power for whatever reason, you know. So he says that if something has to change, then it always does. So again, he's capable of doing it. He's just not willing to do it proactively. So I like this song. It's a really cool song. But with that said, I only have one more song I want to talk about, which is the next track, Someone Says, where we introduce, or where we are introduced to a new character. The last two songs on the album, tracks 10 and 11, are really good, but I want to save that for you guys. So anyway, with that said, let's check out Someone Says.
Neighbor, you've fallen in with the wrong crowd. I've got so much to tell you in so little time. Oh neighbor, keep things close to your heart. If no one can help you, then how can I?
So that's Someone Says, and as far as I'm concerned, these are probably the most important lyrics on the album. You know, we've got a new character, it sounds like. We've got the depressed main character over here, but then over here we've got the guy's neighbor who I guess has noticed that our depressed hero is really, really struggling. And as he mentions, he's getting in with the wrong crowd, which I'm assuming is talking about drugs. So maybe this guy is trying to feel better by taking drugs. You know, but our neighbor is trying to be a good Samaritan. Maybe he's had a very similar life experience. He's probably a little bit older, and he sees this guy going through what he went through, and he wants to help him. But you know, he's a complete stranger, essentially. And as he mentions, you know, he says, if no one can help you, then how can I? So I interpret that as like, if this guy's friends and family can't help this man, then how can I as a complete stranger do it? Although I'm going to get a little philosophical for a moment. So let's say that I have a big problem in my life, and other people notice it. If some random stranger came up to me, someone who has no, like, you know, someone who doesn't need to tell me anything, if some random guy came up to me and said, like, hey, it seems like you're struggling, I want to give you some advice, you know, I hope you take it, I would probably imagine I would take that guy's advice a lot more seriously than someone I know. Because someone I know is almost obligated to care about me, but someone who's a stranger doesn't need to. So their advice might be more beneficial. But anyway, it just made me think of that. I thought it was a beautiful message. But that's all I really have to say about the back room. Again, as I mentioned, I think it's just amazing ear candy. There's just so many hooks, and the singing's terrific. The lyrics are really pretty deep most of the time. I just really like it. So I hope that you guys like it too. So yeah, this is the back room. Check it out. You know, feel free to leave a comment telling me how you feel. You know, did you like it? Did you hate it? And if you enjoyed the video, you know, please like and subscribe. It would really help out. But that's all I really have to say. So check them out, editors. Hope you like it, and have a good night.